Hey everyone, welcome to Famous Motion Pictures, where we'll be discussing disruptive innovation, investing, filmmaking, and how all these things relate to one another and how they all connect. I'm super excited to do today's video because today I'm going to be talking about something that I'm really passionate about, and that's space and space exploration. And one company that I'm really excited about is SpaceX. I watch SpaceX launches like the way people follow sports. I get food prepared. It's like an event for me. I'm on Reddit discussing what's going on with everyone else. This is like a massive interest of mine, and I'm really excited to do today's video. So you may be asking yourself, well, what on earth does SpaceX have to do with filmmaking? First of all, I just want to start by saying, unfortunately, I am not a SpaceX investor. I'm just a massive fanboy. And one particular project that I want to talk about is Starlink. For those of you who don't know, Starlink is a satellite internet project that SpaceX has been conducting for a while now. Essentially that they're launching thousands and thousands of satellites into low Earth orbit and creating a constellation. They send up these stacks and they deploy like dozens and dozens at a time. It's super cool. If you're ever tuning into their live stream, they have cameras on it and you can see these things deploy, and it's really interesting. Like I said, you might be asking yourself, well, what on earth does this have to do with filmmaking and the entertainment industry? And the answer to that is it has everything to do with it. This constellation of low latency, high speed broadband internet will be global. It's like a little satellite. You plug it in and it opens up possibilities. It opens up communication. It really allows anybody in the world to have access to the internet. For those of us who have had internet for decades now and have had access to like fiber optic cables and great infrastructure, we really take our connectivity and our access to the internet for granted. But there are a lot of remote regions in the world where people haven't had access to reliable internet. Some people haven't had access to internet at all. What will happen now is SpaceX's Starlink project will essentially enable these regions to have access to crazy reliable 24-hour a day, 7-day a week fast internet. And these people will have access to all the same things that we've taken for granted, such as streaming services, such as gaming, such as access to apps and all of the different platforms and outlets that filmmakers have been, distributing their work on. This is really exciting and opens up a lot of opportunities for the entertainment industry in terms of tapping new markets and finding new audiences. And this isn't just very remote foreign places. There are lots of places in North America as well, rural places, smaller towns that don't have access to the same infrastructure for broadband internet that the rest of us in larger cities have had. From a production standpoint, this also has massive advantages because all of a sudden, remote productions, if you're shooting on location, if you're in a desert, if you're in a jungle, if you're out at sea, you're going to be able to have one of these Starlink satellites, and you're going to be able to plug it in and have access to the internet totally remotely. You don't have to have that infrastructure, the fiber optic cable. You don't have to have all of that stuff that we've taken for granted. You could essentially take the internet with you. Starlink will beam down its connectivity from low Earth orbit. They can upload files to the cloud. They can manage their production in a more efficient way, and they can maintain communication between the entire production in different units. So that's a really cool advantage from a production standpoint. This also has huge implications to creators in regions of the world that haven't had reliable and equitable access to the internet. All of these creators will eventually have the opportunity to access YouTube and access all of these kind of filmmaking tools and these platforms, and accessing filmmaking tutorials and connecting with others and building a network and all of these things that filmmakers and creators in other communities and regions haven't had access to. So that's another really cool opportunity that is afforded by a project like Starlink. So this has really cool implications from an investment standpoint as well. Cathie Wood's ARK Invest earlier this year launched a space-themed ETF. The really interesting thing about this actively managed ETF is that it includes companies like Netflix and includes companies like Amazon, companies that would essentially benefit from tens of millions of people being able to have access to the internet for the first time. People that couldn't necessarily sign up for a streaming platform because the quality would have been so bad, or maybe it wouldn't even work in the first place. So there's going to be this kind of entire cohort of people that will be joining potential subscriber bases in the future from an investment standpoint. There could be a lot of potential kind of untapped growth, especially in certain streaming platforms that maybe leveled off in their subscriber growth over time. I do just want to quickly mention, at the time of this recording, I don't personally own the ARK-X space-themed ETF in my own portfolio. However, I do own some of the individual companies that are included in this fund. Now, just just to be clear, I'm not endorsing any of these companies, and I'm not recommending that you buy or sell any of these securities whatsoever. I'm not a financial expert, and this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing some insight into my own investment portfolio and also using these companies as examples to illustrate these opportunities for the entertainment industry. And that's kind of what Famous Motion Pictures is all about. I'm really trying to take my passion for investing and for disruptive innovation and for filmmaking and the entertainment industry and find how they're all kind of converging on each other and how new opportunities in these industries and sectors outside of filmmaking actually disrupt and move the needle within the film industry. Things that are very difficult to kind of assess and figure out when you're just living in the filmmaking bubble and when you're not kind of tapped into these other sectors. If I didn't know about these funds and if I wasn't a reader of market news and if I didn't follow SpaceX and if I didn't follow all these other space exploration startups, if I didn't follow all of this and I just kind of lived in my filmmaking bubble, I wouldn't really know that these kind of technologies are becoming available and I wouldn't know what happened. So that's really why I wanted to start this channel, and I wanted to kind of take all the stuff that I'm learning and kind of infuse it into my filmmaking and to share it with everyone else, because for the longest time I really just wanted to be a filmmaker. That's all I wanted to do, and that's all I wanted to read about. And I thought that being totally tapped into filmmaking, I thought that like just being piped in and only reading filmmaking news, just reading the filmmaking trades and the Hollywood trades and staying within the bubble of the film business, I could learn a lot about filmmaking. And though that's true, I find that I've actually learned a lot of insights into filmmaking by branching out into these other areas, because oftentimes disruption to a particular industry doesn't come from within that industry. It comes from outside that industry. So one thing that I'm really interested in and one thing that I want to do moving forward, I'm making sure to pay attention to trends and making sure to pay attention to technology and to disruptive innovation outside of filmmaking, and then figure out how all these things can connect, because I want to be at the forefront of these things, and I don't want to be blindsided by not being aware of all of this exciting stuff that's coming out of other industries and how, as a filmmaker, we can take advantage of these things and hopefully be optimistic about the future of independent film. I hope that you guys enjoy this video. I love talking about space. I love talking about SpaceX. I love talking about all these kind of cool, disruptive, innovative companies that are making huge advancements outside of the filmmaking community and then finding a way to kind of pipe that into my filmmaking passions. If there's anyone out there that's like feeling down about filmmaking, or maybe their career isn't working out so well, or maybe it just hasn't been a great year. I know 2021 filmmaking wise has actually been a pretty terrible year for me, and I'll be making future videos on why that is. I found it really helpful to look outside of my filmmaking bubble and to start focusing on these other things that I get really, really pumped about. Whenever I'm feeling down or if I'm feeling bummed about how hard filmmaking is, it really helps to live stream a rocket launch and to think about how hard launching rockets to space is. Hopefully that puts a few things into perspective. Hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you in the next one.